Good evening and welcome to the Town of Rockland's Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, October 17, 2023. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Selectperson Childs, start us off.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPSRockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. I actually have 4 announcements tonight. The first one is the Union Point, the South Weymouth Naval Air Station, is going to be hosting a community meeting on their proposed zoning that'll be on our special town meeting warrant on November 7th. Their community meeting is going to be on Monday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Rockland Golf Course on Plain Street across from the Senior Center. And I'd encourage anybody from the community that's interested in the proposed zoning and is intending on coming to town meeting. It's a great opportunity to hear a presentation, ask questions, get a lot of questions answered before coming to town meeting. Next, we're having our annual Firefighter Appreciation Day this Saturday, the 21st. It'll be at 10 a.m. at the fire station. It's open for anybody to come. It's a very brief, informal ceremony with selectmen and our state rep and state senator. And if you're not able to attend, I would just say if you happen to see firefighters or paramedics out and about on the day, just give them a wave and a thank you. It's a great tradition that you started here in town. Next, the Rockland High School Band Boosters is having their annual fall bottle and can drive on Saturday, November 4th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's at Town Hall. And then the Scouts are doing their food pantry collections on Saturday, November 4th at 9:30 a.m. And those are all the announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda, minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes from 10/3/23.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And Donna, that's an abstention for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you much. Next on the agenda, new business. Entertainment license request, Article 15 Brewing LLC, 406 VFW Drive. Welcome, Leo.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So we're down office petitioning to get an entertainment license as well as a common vic, so that we can start to utilize the space that we have. We have a 6,000 square foot tap room, and we've had some small stuff in terms of like live music and things, and we've actually started to gain a lot of momentum in terms of being utilized as an event space. We've had stuff for the town of Rockland as well, but we have an upcoming event for wrestling. It's actually professional wrestling that's going to be going on inside the building. So that's our desire, is to obviously do the right thing and get our licenses in line and move forward, hopefully.
Okay, anybody have any questions, concerns as to the entertainment license?
Yeah, I'm just curious, are you building a stage for the bands and having baffles come down to?
So we actually already had the stage already built in when we first
Okay.
applied and did all of our zoning and stuff. So
Yeah.
the stage is there and it's already been pre-wired
Yeah.
according to the fire department's plans, so that
Okay.
everything shuts off if there's ever an issue with
Yep.
the alarms go off. It turns the whole system off so that people can evacuate properly.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, well, we have you up here, we might as well just do your common vic license as well.
Yep.
Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion to approve the entertainment license and the common vic license.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
A motion in 2 seconds, all those in favor? That's unanimous, thanks.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next on the agenda, common vic license for the Hole in One, 482 Market Street. Is there somebody here from them? John, maybe?
How are you?
John, how are you?
Wow. Cool.
John, tell us about yourself a little bit and what you're looking to do.
My wife and I owned Themes Pizza for 17 years till October, and we have Hole-in-One Bakery and Donuts on Cape Cod in East Hampton, Orleans, and we have the Fairway Restaurant. So we very familiar with the property next door. We knew Mike, the previous owner of the Honeydew, for a long time, 17 years, and the landlord approached us about putting a hole-in-one in there. So we are.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments?
Fabulous. Right on. I think it's amazing
Thanks.
what you're doing.
Thanks, I
and-
appreciate it.
I ordered pizzas for my kids from Themis tonight. But
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
Well, the
Yeah.
reputation of the donut store definitely precedes you, where a lot of people are very much looking forward to
Oh,
this.
good. Some people have asked. We just don't hear a lot of the buzz because the construction guys say, yeah, someone came in or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I hope, yeah. It should be a good addition. Gutted it out. Took everything out. Yeah, that's it. That's really it, yes.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions, comments? Everybody's good? I'll entertain a motion to approve common vic license.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
3 seconds. All right, I got a motion in 3 seconds. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Excellent.
All right, next on the agenda, 1.5 million sewer department borrowing. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. So if you go into your binders, excuse me, in between letters D and E, you'll see some of the material. So this is the $1.5 million that was authorized for the sewer department to borrow at our last annual town meeting. And if you recall, we specifically wrote that article to allow it to commingle with $1 million in ARPA funding. So it would be a total of $2.5 million available to the sewer department. And they're using these funds to further their design of improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. Partially for some of the phosphorus tertiary treatment they have to do, but also kicking off some of the bigger redesign and improvements that will have to be made. As a side note, and I'll talk about this more in my town administrator comments, we discussed this with the EPA recently, some of these actions, and the EPA is very pleased that we're putting our money where our mouth is and making some inroads. So what we need to do tonight is to approve the issuance of these notes. John, as the former treasurer, will be very familiar with this process. You'll see the one-page summary from Hilltop Securities, our financial advisor, and it shows you that the coupon rate is 5%. Obviously, interest rates went up. What we're looking at here is temporary borrowing. This is a bond anticipation note. So the intent here is because we know there's going to be more significant bonding that's going to need to occur in the future as they start really ramping up what they're going to have to do. So this is a temporary note. It's interest only. And then in a year or 2 or 3, or whenever it is that the next big phase of potential borrowing happens with the sewer department, we'll get town meeting authorization. Presumably that'll be a much larger borrowing. Then we can roll this into an actual bond. So this is temporary, and it'll get us bridge the gap until we do a larger borrowing. If you go to what I think is your next page, you'll see a page that says vote of the Board of Selectmen. So unfortunately, this whole page really needs to be read when you're ready to the point to take a vote. The page after that where it says I further certify, you don't need to read that. The clerk of the Board of Selectmen is going to be the town clerk. We've confirmed that that's acceptable. And so when Tiffany, or probably not Tiffany because I know she's got a cough tonight. So when somebody was ready to read it, at the beginning I would just skip the words, the clerk, and I would just read it as the Board of Selectmen, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's pretty straightforward. We worked with our financial advisor, got the best rate possible. You'll see there's a pro rata premium, so that's an amount that comes back to the town, and that'll help defray a portion of the issuance costs associated with the borrowing. And I should also highlight just probably the most important point, which we've talked about since we first proposed this and since as it was voted at town meeting, and we've repeated, but I want to keep that transparency going. The debt service on these bonds is going to be paid by the sewer department through their enterprise fund. So they've already been ramping up their rates, which is needed to cover the debt service on this, and we've gone over their rate study before, so you've seen that trend line. But this will be, while it's a general obligation bond, it's ultimately it's the town that's responsible. If there is any kind of default, it will be paid by the sewer department through their enterprise fund. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have
Any
any.
questions, concerns?
Yeah, can you explain, like, if we do bond it, hopefully in the future there'll be a lower rate, interest rate?
Yeah, if I had the
So-
crystal ball, I'd be working
Yeah.
on Wall Street, but
Yeah.
hopefully, as the economy's been changing, it's definitely,
5%'s kind of.
yeah,
high
it's
for this,
definitely
yeah.
possible. I mean, 5's lower than what it was in
Mhm.
recent past, but
Mhm.
yes, hopefully it'll continue to go down, and then when we're doing a larger issuance, we'll be able to roll that in
Mhm.
at a lower rate, but
Okay.
no promises. I don't know, John, what do you think?
5% on a band right now is about as good as you're gonna get,
Mhm.
so that's, yeah. I mean, you can put money in the bank now at 5%, so the fact that we're borrowing it short for 5% it's actually 4.5% when you figure in the premium, that's not
Yep.
bad, so.
Okay, do I have a volunteer to read?
I will-
Okay.
I
Oh, you
will.
will? Go ahead.
I will if no one else will.
Perfect.
Please.
All right. All right. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Rockland, Massachusetts certified that at a meeting of the board held on October 17th, 2023, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board. Voted to approve the sale of $1.5 million, 5% general obligation bond anticipation notes, the notes of the town dated October 26, 2023, payable October 24th, 2024, to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services LLC, at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $6,840. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the notes, the preparation and distribution of the notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated September 26, 2023, and the final official statement dated October 3, 2023, each in such form may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a significant events disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by the bond council to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the notes for the benefit of the holders of the notes from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-insurance federal tax compliance procedures and continuous disclosure procedures in which forms as the town treasurer and bond council deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the notes and to comply with relevant security laws. Further voted that any certificates or documents related to the notes, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail and a PDF file or by any other electronic transmission shall be effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signature pages of any documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents in all matters relating hereto, having the same legal effect as the original signatures. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver said such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes.
Take a breath.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
was very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve all that John just read.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, next on the agenda, introduction of new staff. Courtney Bjorgard and Allison Quinn. Doug?
Right, so maybe I'll ask Courtney to come on up first, if you don't mind sitting right up there. And while she's coming up, I'll say, or ask, I guess, take it easy on her. She's only been here a week. But no, all kidding aside, both Courtney and Allison started on the same day, last Tuesday. We're all very excited, to have them start. They've literally hit the ground running. And with that, I've asked each of them just to give a very brief, introduction, since it's your first time for all of you to meet them and for the community to meet them as well. So I'll just turn it over to Courtney to introduce herself.
All right, thanks, Doug. Good evening, everyone. I've met a few of you, but looking forward to getting to know the rest of you and getting to know the other community members in town. Prior to joining the team here in Rockland, I served as the lead for our economic and community development work at the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and South Shore Economic Development Corp. So part of what I bring with me to this role is kind of a business perspective to some degree, and also a community perspective, and bridging those two. So that's kind of how I look at planning and development, is through kind of these multifaceted, holistic viewpoints. So I led a lot of the housing, infrastructure, placemaking work over at the South Shore Chamber. I have worked with some Rockland businesses and Rockland artist communities on our placemaking campaign, Hello South Shore. And prior to being at the chamber, I worked with the National Conference of State Legislatures, which is a state legislative organization out of Washington, D.C. So, familiarity with the workings between local, state, federal level, and hoping to work closely with the team here to kind of tap into any resources that we can to kind of move towards the goals that you all have laid out for the future of Rockland. So I'm excited to be here, happy to answer any questions, and excited to get to know you all more over these next few weeks, and beyond.
Anybody have any questions for Courtney? Comments?
No, but welcome.
Thank you.
And no matter what he tells you, we're not that scary.
Very warm and welcoming. Thank you.
Most of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
I am really thrilled to have both of you on board.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to read that you're a good segue to make it smooth sailing with the MBTA adjacent zones, because that's kind of going to be a next big housing initiative with the state.
And I think one of the other things that I did with my role over at the chamber and the SSEDC is when the MBTA communities came out, one of the things we did is we reached out to all the different communities in the region to get their feedback on how they were feeling about those new guidelines and regulations, and how they were planning to implement them. So, part of what I'm hoping to bring to the table is a little bit of a regional perspective too, and to be able to tap into some of those other resources and other communities that are in the South Shore. So thank you, Lori. Excited to be able to work with Allison on a lot of the planning and zoning related work here in Rockland. So.
Everybody looks to Chief Duffy when the
Yeah,
song goes
I
by.
wasn't sure if you had to take that.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Any other comments, questions?
No, I don't think so.
All right,
right.
Courtney,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you. All right, next, Allison Quinn, Town Planner. Doug, you want to tee it up?
Yeah, kind of the same thing, really. They've both been attending a bunch of meetings with me. We've been, I've been exposing them to a lot of the different issues we've been facing, and it's a long list, and we're only, partially through it now. We've talked about a couple of the zoning things that we know, putting aside the special town meeting with Union Point, because obviously they just started, so they're not responsible for that. But going into next May, at a minimum, two things we'll be looking at with zoning are the MBTA community zoning that Lori mentioned, as well as an updated floodplain maps. FEMA's come out with new maps again, so there'll be at least two things that Allison will present. And we've been meeting with a number of different staff, stakeholders, other people, and just recently, tonight, before this meeting, the three of us met with the chair of the zoning board and the chair of the planning board, and I was only there at the very beginning, then I had to leave. and they had a long and I think successful meeting with them. I'll let Allison describe it more, but my bottom line is really it's been a great start, and I'll let Allison speak for herself.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for welcoming. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So as Doug indicated, I'm your new town planner. I have experience in the city of Boston, working with the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I worked on 2 special projects there: regulatory reform, which was updating the zoning code. And the second project I worked on was reconciliation of all the urban renewal parcels. From there, I worked for a bit in the town of Milton. I was the assistant director of planning. Spent a few years there, and then I went back to the city to work with some colleagues when cannabis was adopted in the state, to help with those regulations. And now I find myself here. I'm very excited to be here. I think planning is my primary hat and a great place to work. Having met some of the folks who are engaged in planning and land use in Rockland, I'm very excited to be here and be part of the process that hopefully updates and helps move a little bit of the economic engines forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, so you worked with Massachusetts Fallen Heroes?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I worked with those guys on and off for a bit. I worked part-time when my kids were a little bit younger, yeah.
Yeah.
Great
that's
guys.
Great. So, Tim White we're really lucky to have him too as our veterans.
I
Services
briefly got to
coordinator.
meet him, yeah, our
Great.
first day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I look forward to what you two can do together for
Yeah.
the vets in town. Yeah, for
That
sure.
sounds great. Yeah, looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Allison, thank you very much. We look forward to working with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yep, for sure.
All right, next on the agenda. Other new business not reasonably anticipated. Doug.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, we do have something that was not reasonably anticipated that I should give you an update on tonight. As the board knows, we now have an emergency shelter in town at one of our hotels at the Comfort Inn. So I wanted to give, and I know that you know that I've given you some updates over the weekend, but I wanted to give you a fuller update tonight, and as well as give the community an update, because aside from the press release and the social media post, this will be the first time the community's heard directly from me. So I'd like to start at the beginning, if you don't mind, even though some of this will be a little bit redundant, and happy to try to answer any questions I can at the end. So just to be very clear with the public, the town was first notified about this from the state last Thursday, October 12th. So we were just recently notified on Thursday. When I got that notification via email, I immediately called up our emergency shelter team, because we actually put a team in place just a couple weeks earlier because we've seen what happened in Middleborough and some other towns, so we were trying to be proactive. On that team, we have the fire chief, the deputy fire chief, police chief, police administrative lieutenant, health agent, building inspector, school superintendent, assistant school superintendent, town accountant, assistant town administrator, town planner, and myself. So we got, I think, every single base covered. The key thing to understand here is that it was the hotel, one of the 3 hotels in town, the one hotel voluntarily decided to opt in to the state's emergency shelter program. The other 2 hotels did not opt in. So there's only one hotel that chose to participate in that program. The town had absolutely no say in that decision. So I want to just repeat that again, because there's been questions, why is the town doing this? Or why did the town decide to? We didn't decide to do anything. The hotel decided to participate. There's an emergency shelter program in the state because there are people in need. And once that gets activated with the state, then things happen, and then the town has to deal with aspects of that. As of today, again, it's Tuesday, October 17th right now. We currently have 26 people in the hotel, 11 adults and 15 children. Currently, the state has reserved 20 rooms at the hotel for this purpose. But it's my understanding the state will most likely be reserving all 101 rooms at that hotel by the end of the month. So that's the number of rooms, 101 rooms. The hotel's maximum capacity, so the number of people, pursuant to the town's occupancy certificate, is 260. So again, there's currently only 26 people in the hotel. Currently only 20 rooms reserved. Most likely all 101 rooms will be reserved by the end of the month. The maximum capacity is 260. The people staying at the emergency shelter could be American citizens. They could be Massachusetts residents that just for whatever reason are in a phase in their life where they qualify and are in need of emergency shelter like this. And they could also be migrants from other countries. It can be a combination of both. It's not all necessarily one or the other. Now, one question, and I guess more of a comment that I've heard from a number of folks, is asking about why, and I use this word in quotes because this is the term that's being asked, is why are we, funding and subsidizing illegal immigrants or illegal people? So I want to clarify that everybody in this hotel and in our emergency shelter and all the emergency shelters are either American citizens or they're migrants from other countries that have legally entered the country and have legally followed the asylum process. So I just want to be really clear about that. These are people from other countries that are fleeing unsafe or violent situations and trying to save their families, and there's a legal process where you can enter the country and seek asylum. That's who are being cared for here. They're not, quote unquote, illegal. The National Guard is on site at the hotel to help with certain logistics and especially to be the go-between between the people staying there and the hotel management. So the front desk isn't just, besieged with lots of requests. So they're there to really help coordinate things. They're also going to try to assist in arranging transportation that might be needed to help take people to important appointments. They're going to try to help with coordinating the access of medical care, signing them up for things, insurance or mass health, and also assisting in sort of connecting and coordinating any potential school-age children and families to our school department. The people in the shelter have to abide by all the hotel rules, and the National Guard Master Sergeant who I spoke with was very clear that if anyone doesn't abide by the rules in the hotel, they have to leave. And he said that based on his experience, he's overseeing a number of these shelters across the state. There have been zero problems with any guest staying there because they don't want to lose the opportunity they have to stay in these shelters. So there have not been any problems. Everyone is being screened by State Department of Public Health nurses. And they're going to screen them for a variety of things, and they're also going to make sure that all their vaccinations are either up to date or they will get vaccinated. So I want to be clear about that because that's another question that I've heard about. The state is providing food for all the residents, 3 meals a day, so that's one thing we do not have to worry about. We don't have to worry about providing food. The state is taking care of that. But we do need to assess some of the other needs that the people that are staying there might require. We're not sure yet, but we're anticipating that the greatest need that's not going to be filled by the state is most likely going to be winter clothes, personal care products, diapers and cribs, and feminine hygiene products. That's what we're guessing. Many in our community and our neighboring towns have offered to help and have offered to donate. But I want to be clear that the first thing we need to do is assess exactly what the needs are before we start requesting collections from anybody. We need to know what we need first before we take any other action. Our new assistant town administrator, who you just met, Courtney, is going to lead that effort in assessing the needs. And then if we do need any kind of public donation process, Courtney will help coordinate and lead that effort. She's also looking at compiling a list of private organizations, whether it's private businesses, nonprofits, et cetera, to see what they're willing to provide, and she's going to start an inventory of that. So there'll be more info to follow. So again, for the public, we really appreciate people's offering to help donate food and other things, but we're gonna wait, figure out exactly what we need before we go down that road. From a financial perspective, I think it's possible the town could lose some rooms tax revenue. I've heard anecdotally that the state may stop paying the rooms tax after a period of time for these stays. That has not been officially confirmed to me yet, and we have asked for clarification on that. If that's the case, that'll certainly be disappointing, and we'll have to quantify exactly what that loss will be. Our school department is working very closely with DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, so that they can prepare for any potential school-age children, because there are children that are currently in the shelter. I want to stress our school department is completely on top of the situation. They're working closely with DESE. They're working closely with our regional response coordinator, which we have from the state. I should have mentioned that earlier. The Department of Public Health has provided us with a regional response coordinator. So the school's on top of their piece. One thing that I'm not quite clear on yet is if we do have school-age children that ultimately get enrolled, and if there is some state funding that might follow, I don't know if that funding is actually going to cover the actual expenses that the school department is going to incur for those kids. So we'll just have to wait and see how that shakes out. So really in closing, again, I want to just stress this was not a decision that the town of Rockland made, not a decision that the board made, I made, or anybody else in town. We do not have the ability to opt out of this program. This is a state program. It's still rapidly evolving. The state itself is still figuring this out as they go along, which has been evidenced by some of our interactions with the state. They're doing their best. While I have received a few nasty phone calls from just a few residents, I really am hoping that the majority of our community is going to be kind and compassionate, and will come together to help these needy families and welcome them to our community. That's my hope, and I think that's the hope of the board as well. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions. Courtney, Allison, the two chiefs are here. They're also involved. Anybody, do you have anything to add that I may have missed? No? All right, so happy to try to answer any questions. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, anybody have any questions or concerns? I know, Doug, in a couple conversations that you and I had, I feel pretty comfortable that you answered all the questions that I brought forward from residents in the community. It's pretty thorough as far as what's been brought to me with some of the concerns. You touched upon the vaccination. You touched upon, you know, the nature of how these people came to be there, and what it consists of, what that population consists of, and what the maximum capacity of it is. So, you know, I would just caution everybody. There's been a lot of rumors and conjecture on social media, and a lot of nastiness. Social media for me, it's not a news source, and it shouldn't really be for anybody else. It's a lot of misinformation. So if anybody is really looking to get involved, obviously they can reach out here. But if they're looking for the information, Doug just gave the information. That's the information that we have at this time, and you know, there's the most transparency, you know, as far as the situation goes. I mean, that was every single thing that we've seen so far. So with that, anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, you know, people are asking me how long the situation is going to last there.
Yeah, that is unclear. We don't have a firm end date. The National Guard talked about a six-month deployment, but that was just the Guard. I've not heard of any end date from the state. I don't think they know yet. I should have added earlier too. I'll continue to give updates at every board meeting to the extent there are any updates to give. I'll make sure, at a minimum, I'll give updated numbers, and we're going to try to have some weekly meetings with our regional coordinator, and our staff will continue to work on this continually. And if I get any updates, I'll push them out publicly, and I'll give updates at our meetings here.
Another thing, some people were asking about what power our board has to change the situation through licensing, because they say the hotel zone was not licensed or zoned for this purpose. So can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, you really don't have any authority to stop the emergency shelter program. And I think if the board were to try to revoke, you know, a local license, I think you would be slapped with sanctions and litigation from the state immediately. Yep. They are there, and I could double and triple check this with the building commissioner today. The hotel is in full compliance with all the codes
Yep.
and zoning and everything else. They are in compliance. You know, the fire chief, you know, and the deputy made sure that everything with the fire suppression system and all the life safety, you know, things that are required, that everything is up to date. And so, yeah, so no, we have no ability to opt out, and
Yeah.
I would not recommend you try to take some action to revoke a license of a business because of a state emergency shelter program that's authorized by a state of emergency by the governor, because I think that's a
Right.
recipe for disaster.
Yeah, well, thanks for clarifying. I'm just kind of getting community questions
Sure.
out in the open.
Sure.
And I should also say, I personally know how giving this community is, because when our house burnt down, I mean, our neighbor's garage was full of clothes and toys and stuff for our kids. It was unbelievable. There's a food program for us. I mean, I just know how giving this community is and compassionate. So.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I fully agree, and I don't know that I mentioned it in my comments, but some of our neighboring towns have also offered to help as well. So,
Yeah,
you know, I think there are a lot of resources out there.
And I would just like to thank you, for so quickly mobilizing all of the departments and all of the departments coming together, because this was a great influx of new activity. And the big thing is, in order to be able to move forward cohesively, that was very important. So I just want to thank you, and to thank you for the update.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's no problem. I mean, it's easy for me to call a meeting. I mean, it's the team, it's the people there, you know, starting with the two chiefs right in the back, that we're fortunate to have great people working for the town.
And all the better now that we have a fuller team too,
That's
to
right.
be able to accommodate all of all that's new. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, could you, this rooms tax, did you say that you expect that it will continue for a little while, then stop, or could you just repeat that?
Yeah, that's what I've heard anecdotally, is that the state will pay the rooms tax on these emergency shelter rooms for some period of time. I've heard 30, 60, 90 days. It seems to move. But then after, whatever that cutoff time is, then the state is going to stop paying the rooms tax. And so that's what we need to get clarification on, and what that fiscal impact will be to the town with a loss of local receipts.
Will what they pay, will that be based on the hotel being fully booked for those 30, 60, 90 days? Because that will actually be more
Yeah.
than what it.
That's a good point. I follow what you're
saying.
saying. Yeah, so I mean, so what you're saying is, say at the
Because it's
end of
not
the
usually
month,
fully booked, yeah.
say at the end of the month, they're fully booked, and we get that fully booked rooms tax for 2 or 3 months. How does that compare? But it all depends on how long this goes on for,
Right.
right? If this
Right.
lasts
I'm just
3
curious to
years.
know how
Yeah.
that's gonna
Right,
shake
me
out.
too.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions we specifically asked at our first regional response coordinator meeting, and they're gonna get some answers on that.
In the short, we could be in the positive, but in the
Could be,
long,
yeah, could be positive in the short term and negative in the longer term, yeah.
Yeah.
And would the tax be based on the high rate that I'm hearing that they're,
I don't know that it's necessarily a high rate. I'll have
Okay.
to find that out.
okay.
Yeah, that I don't know that.
Because typically the government will pay like the list price on the room. Because when you go into the hotel, you see on the door, like, it's like $300-400 a night. You're like, it's no way I'd pay more than $120 for this room.
I don't think they're
so.
paying that, yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I will find out. I don't think,
They're
I
paying-
don't think
they're
even the
paying
list
the
price there is that high.
The state's paying the low.
Yeah,
That's-
but
that's
if
good.
this does,
So,
yeah, if they do stop paying and this lasts for a long time, then we'll obviously be losing revenue.
Right, okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, and how much did they say they were gonna pay per student initially through
You know, I
DESI?
don't have.
So I saw it as $105 a day per
Yeah.
student enrolled in the school.
Okay.
And so obviously, it's all gonna depend on what the extra resources those students will need to see. That's
Right,
what I was
yeah.
alluding to before, is
Yeah.
what they're gonna pay. I don't know if anybody knows yet, if that will cover the actual costs.
Yeah,
And I do wanna stress again, because, you know, this is a dynamic situation, but Dr. Cron and Jane Hackett they're aware of what's happening. They really are on top of this. They're working closely with DESI. They had their own separate meeting with our regional response coordinator to make sure they're prepared.
yeah,
And we'll see where we go from here.
okay.
Doug, one more thing. A lot of people have been messaging me that people have been evicted from rooms at the hotels. People that were long-stay residents have been evicted. Can you just set the record straight on that, and just explain that process and how that that term, I guess, came to be
Sure.
used.
And it's also interesting because on the one hand, we're being criticized because long-term stay people are getting evicted, but then the other hand, we're being criticized, why are we allowing other people to stay with long-term stays? So it's a little interesting. But what I think is happening is that I think there are some people or some families that have been staying at the hotel, with month to month for longer periods of time because that was the only place they can afford. And what I think is happening is like I said, at the end of the month, I believe the state is gonna fully book and reserve all of the rooms, and the hotel's been directed to not take any more public reservations. And so I think, when I think of the word evict or eviction, I think of an actual lease with a landlord in an apartment or renting a house or something like that. And that's not what we're talking about here. These are hotel stays. But I think it is entirely possible that you had a local person or family that was staying month to month in the hotel, and that the hotel could very well have told them, at the end of this month, the state's told me I can no longer accept public bookings, so you're gonna have to find somewhere else to go. And I imagine if that's the case and they're not able to stay, it's because they can't afford the market rate for apartments and houses in the region, but they have too much income to qualify for the emergency shelter program, so they're kind of stuck in the middle.
Mhm.
That's my guess. And we raised that issue to the regional response coordinator because I think that's crazy that the state would be displacing one person to house another. So hopefully they're going to address that. But again, that is completely out of our control, and it's because of that situation.
Thank you. Anybody else? We good? All right.
Yep.
Moving on. Next on the agenda, old business, 11/7/23, special town meeting. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. I would like to just very quickly run down the list of warrant articles again, just really for the public's benefit and for those that aren't living this every day like we are. Again, we have 11 articles on the town meeting warrant. Article 1 is appropriating $300,000 from free cash for unanticipated FY24 SPED expenses, special education expenses for the school department. Article 2 is $150,000 from free cash for 2 new studies for the fire department. One, to try to revise the program and the option that we gave voters that was rejected, to try to scale it back, make it a little smaller, a little less expensive, and to also do a study on the current fire department headquarters to see what would be required to at least make it a safer, slightly more efficient environment. Article 3 is a relatively small training grant match for the fire department. Article 4 is a $100,000 appropriation from free cash to fund increases in costs for replacing the flat rubber roof and the HVAC system at the police department. And much of that increase is also related to having to get a whole new control system for the HVAC unit. So not just the unit, but also all the controls. Article 5 is a Community Preservation Act article for the Senior Affordable Housing Project at the former Holy Family School. Article 6 is a correction to the library director's FY24 salary. Article 7 is adopting a Mass General Law in the event that deadlines fall on a Saturday to enable us to stay closed, and then the deadline will push to the following Monday. Article 8 is kind of a standard thing with special town meetings, paying unpaid bills from a prior year, just a quirk of state law that it needs a 9/10 vote at town meeting. And then the main attraction, the last 3 articles are the Union Point zoning articles. Article 9 is the large one, which is the actual substance language of the zoning bylaw. Article 10 is voting on the map. And then Article 11 deals with the governance, basically just confirming state law, which explains that the redevelopment authority has their own zoning board, planning board, conservation commission that oversees the regulatory functions. I want to highlight that the town's building inspector will still be the ones issuing building permits. One other thing I'd like to highlight is when you go to Articles 9, 10, and 11, which is the Union Point zoning, trying to get a little high tech, you'll notice in the bottom of Article 9, we put in a QR code so that if folks want to read the full language, because the whole language is, I forgot how many, over 100 pages for the zoning, they can click this QR code, call it up on their phone or their computer. We will have hard copies available as a supplement at town meeting, but we thought that was a good thing to do. We also put in a QR code at the end of the map article on the top of page 10 in case somebody wanted to be able to really zoom in and look at any areas of that more closely. So the article is complete, all the attorneys, everyone's reviewed it. So I need you to, to have a final, you've already voted it, but you could take a final vote tonight and you can sign it after the meeting. The only thing that could potentially change is the Finance Committee recommendations. The Finance Committee is going to be getting a presentation on the projected fiscal impact at their meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. You are all welcome to attend that meeting if you're interested in seeing the presentation and hearing the questions and answers. So my plan is, it's possible that after hearing that presentation, getting their questions answered, the Finance Committee might want to take a vote to recommend approval because the direct fiscal impact of this could be potentially millions of dollars of new growth coming to the town of Rockland. So there's obviously a fiscal impact associated. So that's the only thing that will change other than what you have in front of you. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I guess we're good.
All right, great.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the final warrant as printed.
Motion
Or
to-
not, as printed, pending recommendations from the Finance Committee.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second,
Motion and a second, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectperson Childs?
yes.
Selectperson Shortall?
Yes.
Selectperson Elwood?
Yep.
Vice Chair Needham?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you. Next on the agenda, other old business not reasonably anticipated?
I have none.
Okay. Next, Town Administrator's Report and Correspondence. Doug?
All right, I do have a few things tonight, so bear with me. It's a little longer than normal, but I did miss your last meeting.
Yeah.
The first one is, as we've said at a few other meetings, the Finance Committee still needs more volunteers, so if anyone's interested in serving on the Finance Committee, I know there's at least 3 members of the board right now that used to be Finance Committee members. If you're interested, contact the moderator. It's a great way to learn about all the departments in town. Next, I attended a Zoom meeting with the Sewer Commissioner, Chairman, the EPA, the state DEP, and our town council on Thursday the 5th. The EPA was looking for an update on where we're at with complying with our administrative order. And I was very pleased. I think we were all pleased. The meeting really did go well. We had a lot of tangible items to show, that we weren't just talking, we were showing that there's been a lot of work done. And in particular, the funding that the board has committed to the sewer department, especially with all the ARPA funding and then the authorization of the borrowing, that really went a long way. That really showed the EPA that we are serious, we're taking this seriously, and we're taking action. So I wanted to let you know that was positive. And there's still a lot more to go, but we're on track. The Board of Health, the health agent, Delshan Flip, got a DEP grant award at the recycling center. She scored a number of these in recent years. This one's over $15,000 from the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program. So that's good news. That'll generally gets reinvested into further improvements at the recycling center. In addition, our HR director, Stacy Callahan, got a $40,000 community compact grant to help us with our HR classification plan. If you recall, we did vote a smaller amount at town meeting to help with that, to have it be a more narrowly focused project. And now with this community compact grant award, we'll be able to do all our positions throughout town. And maybe we can even turn back some of the town funding if possible. But that was a great community compact award. Also, I know I mentioned previously our surplus vehicle auction, so that was complete. It was very successful. We raised over $13,000 to the general fund, getting rid of a bunch of old surplus vehicles. There's still a few left that are, everything's sold, but a few left that haven't been picked up yet. So that's just sort of a funny part of my job these days, is I'm the used car salesman running down to the recycling center, signing the titles over. It's kind of funny. Next, regarding the Marijuana Cannabis Control Commission regulations, I have beat this to death so much I won't give my opinions, but I will say that the final regulations are out, and it is unclear to me if it will be retroactively applied to our existing HCA's or not. I've been getting some conflicting information. When I've spoken to the MMA about it, their understanding is yes, it's the worst case scenario. Upon every renewal, we're cooked. We're going to lose it. But interestingly, when I was speaking the other day with a reporter from the Patriot Ledger, he had spoken with a spokesperson from the Cannabis Control Commission, and he told him the opposite, that it was going to essentially hold harmless. So the MMA is looking into it further. Our land use attorney, Bob Galvin's looking into it further. It's not easily determined right off the cuff. Side note on that, as Allison mentioned earlier, when she was working in the city of Boston, she did work with their cannabis control related things. So there are aspects of this that she's going to be really helpful with, and in particular, part of the law and the regulation that was passed deals with the social equity portion of it, meaning helping people that were previously disadvantaged from prior laws and rules are now given, we're required to give preference and kind of special treatment to help them get into the industry. It's a little bit of a moot point for us because we've capped it at the number of dispensaries we have now, but it's possible if one were to go out of business or whatever, we could entertain another. And there's a lot of very specific legal things we have to do, policies we have to adopt, things we have to post, procedures to implement. So Allison is going to be a great resource to help us with that. Next, I missed the last meeting, as you all know, because I was at the National ICMA conference, the International City Manager Association conference. I won't go into it too much tonight, but I will mention one session in particular that was really just incredibly impactful for me. And I've talked about this topic before because every time I'm exposed to it, it's really impactful for, I know I'm being redundant, but for lack of a better word. But at this session, I got to meet the city manager from Uvalde, Texas, and the city manager from Highland Park, Illinois. And obviously Uvalde had the terrible school shooting. Highland Park had a shooting at a public 4th of July parade. So there were very different events and different things happened. And so a lot of the focus of this, because it's a city manager conference, was just talking about the impact on town halls and city halls, and they're still dealing with it even though it's years later. And so, but just, hearing what happened with the police, the school police department, and all the other police agencies that were called on scene, and what they did and most importantly did not do, and the lack of following incident command and all this stuff. And then also in Highland Park, where it was a morning, morning, not morning like a loss, but it was early in the day, and I think people initially thought that they were fireworks because it was 4th of July, and they didn't put it together that it was gunshots. And then ultimately, when they understood what was happening and people were getting shot, the city manager in particular talked about her experience with firefighters and paramedics on scene, some on duty, some off duty, knowingly going into the hot zone because the scene was not contained yet, and they knew they were going to an active shooting situation, and in some cases family members pleading with them, don't go, but that's what they're trained to do. And it was unbelievably emotional. And so all of this, just again, and I've told the chiefs this repeatedly, and I try to tell their officers, and I'll tell the story again on Saturday. I'm just very grateful for the firefighters and police officers that we have in Rockland, because they do an exceptional job and they risk their lives to keep us safe. So out of everything at the conference, that was pretty powerful. Hard to follow up with that one. I should have done that last. Next, I'll just mention that I'm working with, I think I may have mentioned this earlier, the town of Hingham is coordinating an effort with some neighboring towns to look at a potential MWRA expansion into our region. This is going to be an extremely long-term project. The board's already voted to dedicate some ARPA funding for our share of an engineering study when we get to that point. We have a meeting on that later this week. I think Courtney and Allison will be joining me for that one. I did send in a letter to the Division of Administrative Law Appeals, DALA, on the billboard. As we know that it was rejected. The applicant appealed it to this state agency that's quasi-judicial. We sent in a letter under, I think it was under Mike's signature. So hopefully that can get a little bit of traction. In addition, they would like to extend their host community agreement again for a couple of months. They initially thought they'd get a decision by mid-November. Now it looks like it's going to take a little bit longer. So at the end of my updates, I want to talk to you about our next meeting, because it's the same night as special town meeting. As we all know, the Shingle Mill 40B Affordable Housing Project was approved by our local zoning board of appeals with conditions about 3 inches thick. And I want to, just remind folks in the community, this is not a Board of Selectmen approval. The Board of Selectmen has no authority over 40Bs. It's called a comprehensive permit because it's one comprehensive permit that's done by the independent zoning board of appeals. And anybody that knows anything about affordable housing will always say it's better to have something approved with lots and lots of very specific conditions to minimize the impact on the community, rather than have an outright denial, which will immediately get overturned by the State Housing Appeals Committee. Allison, the first thing she did when she started here was to look at the numbers, because she understands that, we have to send in numbers to the state to get them certified to see if we meet that 10% safe harbor threshold. So Allison's working on that. There's, at a minimum, we're going to be extremely close, like, 9.99%. We have to, Allison's working on it to try to make sure we get every appropriate unit counted to get us to that 10% threshold. And what that 10% safe harbor threshold means is that while the project is pending, we have a year of safe harbor, meaning if a 40B comes in, we can just say no. Once the project is actually constructed, as long as we stay above that 10%, then we're still allowed to continue to say no until we ever dip below it. So it's a big deal. So, and I know people have a lot of legitimate concerns about that project, but there is this associated outcome of it that it could put us very close to or potentially over that 10% threshold. Next, going back to some of the utility stuff, I think the last meeting I was at here, we were talking about our disagreement with the sewer commissioners on the sewer municipal fees. We have sorted that out. The sewer commission chairman, Chuck Hession, and I met a couple weeks ago. We've resolved it. We're not going to be charged fees, and we have a mutual understanding, which is in writing, that of course there needs to be sufficient capacity for anybody to hook up, including a municipal project. So that's very good news. And then so since that time, we restarted our process to continue to apply for ARPA applications for the sewer department. So most recently, we put in a $200,000 application for their generator, and also a $500,000 for the waterworks for PFAS mitigation and filtration, which will be matched by $500,000 from the town of Abington. So I just thought, this is my second to last item. I'll just list down what we have currently pending with Plymouth County ARPA, because it's a lot of moving parts. We had already applied for and have been approved for the $315,000, which was their kind of first phase of the digester boiler replacement. So that has already been approved. We applied for $880,000 for wastewater treatment plant design improvements. That's $880 out of the $1 million that you authorized, which again is going to be leveraged with a $1.5 million in borrowing. $500,000 for sewer I&I remediation. The $200,000, it's technically $191,000 for the generator at the sewer department. And then the nearly $500,000 for water PFAS filtration at the joint waterworks. So we got a lot of applications in. It's a very rigorous process. Their auditors are very detailed, and so there's a lot of work, and that's why there's an initial review, a level 1 review, a level 2 review. There's many steps to this, so we're putting a lot of time and effort into it. And then lastly, our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 7th, which is the same night as our selectmen's meeting. And again, I apologize for having to push town meeting off to a Tuesday. I wasn't able to do the Monday. So I guess my question for you guys, and then we can talk to Mike offline, or I didn't know if you wanted to have a consensus about this. It looks to me like there's going to be a very light agenda, just a couple of license approvals and the billboard extension. So I was thinking, if you guys were agreeable, maybe we meet that night, but just a little bit earlier, at 5:30 or 6, and just have a 15-minute meeting. But you can think about it. You can do what you want. I'm just throwing that out there, and that's all I have tonight.
Well, who'd be available? Anybody that wouldn't be available for that?
Oh, it would be, yeah.
It would be. John, would you be available?
As long as it's not any earlier than 5:30, yeah.
Okay. Tiffany? Donna? Yeah. All right, so what'll be written, 5:30?
You want to do 5:30, 5:45? Is, you know, I don't want to make it too
Yeah,
difficult.
5:45, that way you're not racing over there.
So the town meeting's at 7, right?
7. Yeah, so
Yep.
we could even do, I mean, if we do 6, we just really need to be out of here by
Mm-hmm.
6:20. I just need to get there a little bit early, so.
5:45?
5:45?
Yeah, 5:45 works.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Select Person Elwood?
All right, I think I'm gonna break my tradition. I think I've begged for the rent control enough, so I don't have any comments tonight.
Okay, thank you. Although you did say rent control, so that technically
Okay.
probably
I
didn't.
won't say it
That's
again.
a streak.
Excuse me.
Select Person Childs?
Yeah, I want to talk about the Union Point zoning, and there are several reasons to vote for this zoning, and I wanted to list some of them. Rockland would receive a $4 to $6 million annual tax revenue from it. It's highly likely we can finally get a grocery store. There's an amenities package that the developer provides to us for, I don't know, we'd have to negotiate with them for fields, for things that we need. But the most important part that I just found out about at an open space meeting I went to, and by the way, on the Rockland portion of the base, there's going to be 82% open space, which is, we can't ask for better than that. And I hope the Open Space Committee agrees with that. But L-Star, the old developer, bailed, leaving the Navy holding a $63 million bag. The current developers are willing to pay for that, and if we vote this zoning down, the project goes in the can, and the $63 million will have to be paid back by taxpayers in Rockland, Abington, and Weymouth. And Rockland will owe about $25.2 million. That'll be on our backs as taxpayers. And that is the biggest reason to vote for this zoning going forward. Because we just voted down a $33 million firehouse. And at the end of that project, we'd have something to show for it. This $25.2 million, we'd have nothing to show for it. So, Weymouth approved the zoning, Abington approved the zoning, and I look forward to Rockland's approval of this zoning as well. So, that's my pitch.
You all set?
All set.
All right, thank you, Laura.
That's it.
Select Person Shorto?
I would like to wish everyone a happy, safe fall and a happy, safe Halloween. I'd also like to state that I think it's sad that we've come to a time where we can show such disrespect for police and firemen. The job that they do, that they collectively do, is so important and can be so dangerous. And they deserve respect. And I'd like to thank each and every member of your collective departments for the jobs that you do. I think you deserve respect, and I think you deserve our thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Donna. Vice Chairman Needham?
Once again, I'd like to officially welcome Allison and Courtney. Very, very much looking forward to working with both of you. And I also just want to reinforce, as developments with the emergency shelter proceed and the needs are ascertained, I am happy to share, those needs on social media, and happy to help any way I can, and happy to help your effort in terms of getting the news out.
Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, I don't have much, but kind of piggyback on what Tiffany was saying. I think one of the things that we've done over the years is tried to be as transparent as possible with the residents. And, one of the things that's been disheartening is reading some of the posts on some of the social media pages in town Not just that portion where they suggest that there was anything done by the town that was inappropriate, but just, kind of, just a lack of compassion that I think people are focusing towards these people that are fleeing for a better life. And some of the behaviors that I've heard, Doug and his staff have always been very open to assisting people professionally, and they handle their phone calls professionally when they take them. But to have residents calling up and yelling at them about, decisions that are being made in Washington D.C. or in Beacon Hill, things that are completely out of their control, it's just not appropriate. But if there are residents that have, questions that can be asked respectfully, Doug and his staff have always been available to you guys, and I'm sure they look forward to hearing you guys and having a transparent conversation with you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and enter into executive session, not to reconvene, per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, police officers, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 65, Police Superior Officers, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 175, and per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, Robert B. R. Inc. versus Brate Builders Corp. and Brate Builders Corp. versus Town of Rockland.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Roll call vote. Select Person Childs?
Yes.
Select Person Shorto?
Yes.
Select Person Elwood?
Yes.
Vice Chair Needham?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you, everyone. Good night.